There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is our wrap-up edition of Beyond the Darkness Supernatural News Parashare for 2018. Hard to believe, another year gone, huh, Tim?
Shot in the ass, as my grandfather used to say.
Bam! Gone out the dough. It's gone. No getting it back. But I've got to say, 2018, not a bad year. Not a bad year. I've enjoyed it. I see great things happening in 2019. I'm excited about the prospects of the future for many different things. So I'm excited. I hope more people had a better 2018 than they did 2016 and 2017. I hope we've turned that corner.
I see a lot of people on social media since like 2015 were like, I'm so glad we're rid of that year. On to the next year. I'm so glad we're rid of that year. On to the next year.
It seems it's been a rough road to hoe, if you know what I mean, for the last couple of years. But I'm seeing less of that this year than I have in the past.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. Either that or people are just, giving up to the fact that nothing is going to ever get better, ever. So,
there's that too. Yeah.
I hope that's not the case. Well, we've got more stories to share. Dude, we are about to launch into our 85th year on the air. It's pretty exciting. Our, what is this? Our 13th year begins on January 1st, 2006.
Yeah.
13 years, Tim.
Right.
13 years. Hell, I finally have reached a goal where I have been a part of something longer than the underwear I have in my drawer.
Well, congratulations.
Well, yeah, I like to look at that. I mean, that's a pretty exciting deal when you can finally beat the underwear that you've got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's exciting. We're launching into our 13th, lucky 13. Maybe that's why I'm excited about it. Lucky 13 launching January 1st.
It's a good thing to get excited about. Yeah.
And I think we're going to be trying to do a few new things throughout the year. We're going to try a few new aspects, have a little fun. So I hope you guys will enjoy the fun as we move along and bring you the best in paranormal talk radio, as we've always done and will continue to do for the next foreseeable 13 years. Let's say, I think 26 years we bow out at that point, right?
Well, I got to think, it's probably a good mark to shoot for. We
passed the reins on to Tim 2.0 and Dave 4.7.
There's a 4.7?
Yeah. Wow. I've been working behind the scenes a lot on upgrades.
Wow.
By then, everything should be bionic except for my nose hair. That's already powerful beyond man's wildest treasures, Tim.
Well, it's to be expected, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So, with that said, let us begin our journey to the end, Tim. Is this the end? Beautiful friend, the end. Where shall we begin? The end of 2018 news stories, Tim.
Well, I don't know what kind of things you see when you put up your Christmas tree, Dave, but I've never seen a ghost face in mine. But that's where we're starting today's supernatural news. I've seen all kinds of things in my Christmas tree. There's candy canes. There's neat little Christmas decorations. There's
strings of popcorn.
Sure. There's the occasional termite.
Wow.
Well,
you might want to look into that.
Yeah, probably.
That's not something you probably don't want to bring that into the house. I'm just saying.
Yeah, probably don't want that. But a carer took a picture of a ghost face on a Christmas tree bauble. That's according to this article that I'm looking at here.
What?
That's what it says.
What? A bauble?
A bauble.
Oh, okay.
I think we call them bulbs.
Christmas ornaments?
Yeah.
Little baubles and bulbs? Okay.
Yeah. There aren't many things capable of freaking a person out more than mid-conversation about death when something really weird happens. A white feather mysteriously appears, a thud comes from an empty room upstairs, or a Christmas tree bauble stares back at you. Well, yeah, that would be a little unnerving.
Clyde, our elf on the shelf, makes his way into the tree from time to time and stares out at me through its twisted branches, giving me that eerie chill up and down my spine. So Clyde, the Christmas elf, already kind of does that for me. But if while looking at Clyde, I realized that there was a reflection in a bauble of a face staring back at me there, that would unnerve me. I agree with that aspect.
I'm surprised you haven't poked his eyes out and taken him out and blinded him.
No, because the minute you touch the Christmas elf on a shelf, they lose all their magic power, and my children would be devastated. They truly love Clyde and his crazy hijinks.
See, I would, just for my own sanity, I would pluck his eyes out and put a little blindfold around him, and I would have my sanity back. That's kind of redundant. Well, no, you got to have the extra layer of protection there. That's how that works. Yeah. You just don't pluck his eyes out and look at his little empty sockets, because then that reminds you of the cruelty that you have put out there for Christmas. You put the shiny white blindfold there to remind you that you do have compassion on Christmas. It's just a way of saving your own soul on Christmas.
You might want to see somebody, Tim, about that.
Oh, I'm just saying.
Dark. You're kind of dark.
No,
that's all I'm going to say.
I have a little bit of humanity too during the holidays. I'm just saying.
After you gouge out an elf's eyes, I'm going to question the level of humanity left. But I'm with you.
It's a doll, right, so Dave. It's just a damn doll. That's what I'm saying.
It's not. It's a magical elf who reports back to Santa. Tim,
if it was so
if
it was so magical, it'd fight back and keep its own eyesight, Dave. That's what I'm saying.
It might. You really want to challenge it?
Oh, I will.
Oh, God. Where are we going with this reflective eye bauble creature staring back?
Oh, anyways. So the latter may seem a little too specific, but carer, I think it's a European term, Melanie Scholes claims that it's exactly what happened to her when she caught a ghost haunting a patient's Christmas tree moments after a glass bauble. We'll just call it a bulb. How about that? Mysteriously smashed on its own. 31-year-old Melanie had been sitting and chatting with a colleague and a resident about deceased loved ones when a glass bulb fell from a Christmas tree and smashed. The newly decorated tree had not been touched for at least 15 minutes. That's how much we all like to be touched, about 15 minutes apart during the holidays. And Melanie claims that the suddenly smashed bulb gave the trio a fright, but it was not until later that afternoon when Melanie took a picture of the tree to send to her mom that she realized that there was a face gazing at her from among the branches, Dave. Among the branches. The spectral vision appeared to be gray with a clear eye and nose, so it wasn't Rudolph. With Melanie believing that it could be her colleague's deceased brother, letting her know that he was still around. Melanie claims the spooky vision is even on the same side of the tree as where the smashed bulb was hanging on a low branch. Oh, there's clue number one, Dave. And believes the ghost was showing them that he was present. Melanie from Bolton, Greater Manchester said, "I see a ghost in the bulb. There's a face in the bulb, and it's looking right at me. I think it stands out quite a lot, but we didn't see it at the time." We had a conversation in the morning because we were talking about my colleague's brother who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. My patient had just been putting the tree up, and as we were talking about it, the bulb fell off the tree and smashed. We all jumped around to see what it was when the bulb broke. We'd been sitting down chatting for at least 15 minutes. If it was going to fall off, it would have done it more or less straight away. I don't know about that. We'd been talking about her brother in that moment, too. He'd sadly passed away of cancer, and we were having this chat through about it, and it was in that moment that the bulb just fell off. My colleague has seen the photo and said it's her brother. I think it might have been his way to let her know that he was still around. I don't know if it's her brother or not, but I do think it was listening to us, if you know what I mean. Especially with it coming up to Christmas now, it's a family time of year. I showed the picture to my mom, who saw the face first and showed me it back. She cropped it down a bit and said, "Have you seen the face?" I'd missed it at first, and then I could see it. Everyone I've shown seems to be able to see the face, and some people have even claimed they see others around the tree, too, meaning other faces. Melanie, who also runs a ghost hunting company, claims it is not the first time she has experienced paranormal activity in her work as a carer. She once grew very close to a client who sadly passed away, but she saw his shadow gazing at her from his window when she drove past his house a few weeks later. The fearless paranormal investigator has even dared to brave a night at the infamous East Drive in Pontefract, which is widely believed to have been one of the UK's most haunted homes. Melanie said, once or twice at work I've had ghostly activities, and at home as well. We've got our own family-owned ghost hunting company, so it's something I'm used to. Once I was at my mom's house, and my phone was just sitting on the couch on its own, and it just flashed. I wondered what it was, so I went back to my phone, and it had taken a picture of up near the ceiling, but there's a figure in it looking over me. You can see it looking down towards my phone. I spent the night at East Drive in Pontefract. I took a picture of the ceiling because it was a dead old-fashioned polystyrene ceiling, and you could see someone in the ceiling looking down at us. Sometimes I get quite scared from the memories because we were there on our own, and I could hear people running around and banging upstairs, and that really scared me. The strangest paranormal experience was when I lived in Germany, and I used to live in a flat. I laid in bed one night and woke up one night, and I was convinced my son was beside me. I was really poorly, and I was convinced my son was at my side. So I got out of my bed, and I went out of the balcony for a cigarette. I was convinced my son was next to me in the bed, so I could see straight into his room from the balcony, and he was in his own bed. I went back into my own room, and the bed was still indented from where someone had been. I tried brushing it off as myself. It says, I tried brushing it off as myself, going a bit doolally because I was really poorly at the time. I guess she thought she was a little bit crazy. About half an hour later, I woke up to a football bouncing at the side of my bed. I jumped out of bed, and I wouldn't go back to bed that night. That's the strangest, scariest thing I've ever seen. Well, let's hope we can all sleep tonight after reading that. Santa won't be best pleased, it says in the article. So there you go.
So she's got a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, she's had quite a few things going on, especially
good on her.
Christmas related.
I don't know. Do you see the faces that she's talking about in some of the pictures she posted?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's tough.
I could see there's some matrixing there too.
Where are we off to next?
This next story, according to police, a man screamed about vampires before burning down his Daytona house.
Burning down the house.
We go to Florida, Dave. There's a shock in Daytona Beach, where a man is accused of setting fire to his home and had been rambling and having mental issues earlier in the day, according to a police report. Daytona Beach police arrested 64-year-old Melvin Weaver and charged him with arson and aggravated battery on Monday after his home at 604 Casson Avenue burned to the ground Sunday night. By Monday morning, a judge ordered Weaver to undergo an involuntary mental evaluation, according to court records. According to a charging affidavit, as opposed to a standing one. Get it? Because it wasn't charging. Okay. Weaver's wife tried to have him taken into custody for involuntary mental evaluation earlier in the day, but by the time officers arrived at 2 p.m., he was acting as if he was in a sound mind and could not be Baker acted, according to the charging affidavit. Officers and an ambulance left, but later that evening around 7 p.m., Weaver broke several windows in the house, hit his 59-year-old wife with one of her wooden canes, and shouted that the vampires are going to defend themselves, this according to the report, and eventually setting the couple's home on fire and burning it to the ground. Sounds like a nice guy. Yeah. According to Weaver's wife, Jerry Sizemore, she began packing her things and calling Weaver crazy. If he's burning the house down, I'd do more.
Rightfully so. Yeah, I give her that one.
Yeah, I'd do more than just calmly pack my things. I just get the hell out of there. Weaver responded by yanking the insulation out of the ceiling, throwing it on the stove, and turning the stove on. This according to the report. As the kitchen became engulfed in flames, Sizemore states Weaver grabbed a large knife and ran out the door and down the street. Yeah. When officers arrived on the scene, they found Weaver knocking on doors and screaming that his house was on fire and his wife was inside. According to the report, Sizemore said Weaver takes medication for cancer, but she was unsure if he was taking anything else. Police took her to a domestic violence shelter while Weaver was booked into the Volusia County branch jail. It wasn't the first time, however, Weaver's actions have frightened Sizemore. She filed a request for protection in 2014. Jail records show Weaver was booked into the jail twice that year and charged with domestic violence. This week, Sizemore refused to press charges against her husband of 8 years. Weaver was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and first-degree arson of a dwelling with people present.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Damn vampires.
Well, it's always the vampires that end up getting you, especially around the holidays, Dave.
Yeah. Well, if you open up the curtains too fast, they burst into flames. That can set everything ablaze.
It can, yeah.
All right, where are we off to next?
Well, we go to Elon Musk, Dave. He is revealing,
I didn't get the invitation.
Well, he it must have got lost in the mail. It's a busy time of year for the post office and post service. Yeah. Elon Musk reveals plans for a SpaceX spaceship that could carry 100 humans to Mars. 100. It's a confusing headline. Could carry 100 humans to Mars, Dave. Elon Musk has posted images on Twitter of the test hopper prototype that is currently under construction in Texas. What's kind of funny about this story, I read a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. He's not giving you the sugar-coated version of going to Mars, by the way. He's admitting that it's going to be a tough life, and not everyone's going to really survive.
It's a hard knock life for us. Do you think that we're going to see Mars Annie up there?
I think so, yeah. Billionaire Elon Musk has revealed plans for a spaceship that could ferry up to 100 people to Mars. The SpaceX boss has posted images on Twitter of the test hopper prototype that is currently under construction in Texas. He also responded to a flurry of questions from his followers about the spaceship and its rocket engine, which is designed to carry a 150-ton payload into space. Following speculation from one user that the spacecraft will make use of stainless steel, Mr. Musk confirmed that it would use similar materials to the Atlas rockets first produced in the 1950s. Stainless steel is correct, he went on to say, but different mixture of alloys and new architecture, he said. The entrepreneur shared the details following the successful launch of the Falcon 9 rocket, which lifted off from Texas on a separate mission to deliver a spy satellite into orbit. He continued, actually, the only significant design element in common with early Atlas is stainless steel, and we're using a different alloy mix. The SpaceX boss also said the Raptor rocket engine that would help launch the spacecraft had been radically redesigned. Mr. Musk said more details about Starship would be revealed early next year following a test flight of the prototype. I will do a full technical presentation of Starship after the test vehicle we're building in Texas flies, so hopefully March or April, he tweeted. Earlier this year, Mr. Musk said SpaceX was aiming to launch the first manned missions to Mars in 2024. And what's interesting about that, Dave, is those manned missions. So supposedly the price to go on these manned missions is quite expensive. So you have to ante up the money to go on these manned missions. So essentially, millionaires will be going on these manned missions. And so these millionaires are going to have to put shovels in the dirt, so to speak, and help build these colonies. And there's no guarantee that you're going to survive, and there's no guarantee that there's a way back to Earth if you decide you want to come back to Earth. So essentially...
Sounds exciting. Sign me up.
Yeah. So essentially... Yeah,
now I know what to do with all those millions I've been saving.
Yeah. Elon Musk is saying it's going to be, like you said, a hard knock life if you decide to go up there. So
is he going to go?
I don't know. He said that he believes he will go. He believes he'll be part of the process to go there, but after
he sees how everybody else does,
probably.
Yeah.
but he's excited. He's wanting to go.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder if life insurance covers that.
Probably not. No.
No?
No, I don't think so.
But if he was smart, he would put life insurance policies on everybody that goes up.
I would hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so. There is a related story here, however, Dave.
What? Related?
Related story.
Okay.
There is an astronaut out there that says sending astronauts to Mars would be stupid.
Oh.
Go figure.
Wow.
Yeah.
We got a battle of the bands happening between Elon Musk and a NASA astronaut?
Yeah. Bill Anders, to be exact, the lunar module pilot of Apollo 8, the first human space flight to leave Earth's orbit, said sending crews to Mars was almost ridiculous. That, in quotes, NASA is currently planning new human missions to the moon, which has been in plans now for a few years.
Who wants to visit that? Mally Fox has property up there, and if she's got property, there goes the neighborhood, Tim.
Well, that she's a forethinker, Dave. She's actually getting ahead of the curve, so when people get up there, she can charge them rent, kind of like Monopoly.
Yeah.
If it wants to learn the skills and develop the technology to enable a future human landing on Mars, that's the reason for the missions to the moon. The 85-year-old Anders said he's a big supporter of the remarkable unmanned programs, mainly because they're much cheaper, but he says the public support simply isn't there to fund vastly more expensive human missions. What's the imperative, he went on to ask. What's pushing us to go to Mars, he said, adding, I don't think the public is that interested. Meanwhile, robotic probes are still exploring Mars. Last month, the InSight lander, which will sample the planet's interior, successfully touched down at Elysium Planitia, is what it was. In a statement, NASA said it was leading a sustainable return to the moon, which will help us prepare to send astronauts to Mars. That also includes commercial and international partners to expand human presence in space and bring back new knowledge and opportunities. In December of 1968, Anders, along with crewmates Frank Borman and Jim Lovell, lifted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida atop of Saturn V before completing 10 orbits around the moon. The crew of Apollo 8 spent 20 hours in orbit before returning to Earth. They splashed down in the Pacific on December 27th, landing just 5,000 yards from their target point. They were picked up by the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown. It was the furthest humans had ever been from their home planet at that point, and a vital stepping stone on the road to Apollo 11's historic moon landing just 7 months later. But the former astronaut is scathing about how NASA has evolved since the heady days of President John F. Kennedy's pledge to land a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. NASA couldn't get to the moon today. They're so ossified. NASA has turned into a jobs program. Many of the centers are mainly interested in keeping busy, and you don't see the public support other than they get the workers their pay and their congressmen get reelected, Anders went on to say. Yeah, kind of sharp there.
Tired of the bureaucracy of it all, see? My day when we was going to the moon, we was going to the moon.
Anders is also critical of the decision to focus on near-Earth orbit exploration after the completion of the Apollo program in the 1970s. I think the space shuttle was a serious error, he went on to say. It hardly did anything except have an exciting launch, but it never lived up to its promise, he went on to say. The space station is only there because you had a shuttle, and vice versa. NASA really mismanaged the manned program since the late lunar landings. It's a view that might seem surprising from a proud patriot and servant of the U.S. military who still remembers his own mission to space with great fondness. It's also a view that Anders accepts doesn't sit too well with some in the space community. He went on to say, I think NASA's lucky to have what they've got, which is still hard in my mind to justify. I'm not a very popular guy at NASA for saying that, but that's what I think, he went on to explain. His former crewmate, Frank Borman, who commanded the Apollo 8 mission and also spent 2 weeks in Earth orbit during the Gemini program, is slightly more enthusiastic. He said, I'm not as critical of NASA as Bill is, he told 5 Live. I firmly believe that we need robust exploration of our solar system, and I think man is part of that. But asked about the plans of SpaceX founder Elon Musk and Amazon boss Jeff Bezos, who have both talked of launching private missions to Mars, Borman is less complimentary. I do think there's lots of hype about Mars. That is nonsense. Musk and Bezos, they're talking about putting colonies on Mars, and that's nonsense. Reflecting on their historic mission to the moon, Borman described Apollo 8 as a great endeavor and agreed that it had won the space race. Anders said he felt that the lasting legacy of the mission would be Earthrise, a photo taken by the crew showing humanity's home planet hanging in the blackness of space above the lunar horizon. Speaking to BBC Radio's 4's PM, their crewmate Jim Lovell also reflected on the Earthrise moment. When I looked at the Earth itself, I started to wonder why I was here, what's my purpose here, and it sort of dawned on me, he said. And my perspective is that God has given mankind a stage on which to perform. How the play turns out is up to us. Frank Borman and Bill Anders were speaking to BBC Radio 5 Live as part of a special documentary on the 50th anniversary of their historic lunar mission, Apollo 8, Christmas on the Far Side of the Moon. And that was broadcast on Christmas Eve. So there you go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we got astronauts kind of shaking their fists in righteous indignation about the next move. Where do you feel? I mean, do you feel that NASA has let the world down, or do you also feel like, well, we kind of hit what we could do at the time, and once we were there, do we continue to just putter away money to continue to visit the moon because we can? Or do we now set our focus to somewhere further away like Mars? So I kind of personally see that and understand that more. Do we keep piddling away money? The space shuttle was to do different things, and it didn't live up to its promise. It promised it would get into space, and they used it for quite a few important runs, and were able to garner a lot of great information from it. So I don't necessarily believe that his perspective on that is right. Of course, I think, having been up there, having been a part of that program, and having worked with the astronauts, maybe he's aware of more he's not telling us that could have or should have taken place.
You know what? I tend to take their side. I can see where they're coming from, and I tend to agree with them. We made great strides with the programs on the moon, and there was an opportunity to go further. And I think with the development of the space shuttle, there was the opportunity to really push the boundaries. Yet we didn't. We stayed kind of close to home. We did the orbits of the Earth.
I thought you were going to say we did Herbalife. I was going to say, I don't know if Herbalife has anything to do with it, but yeah.
I'm having some issues here because I got a bit of low blood sugar going on, so I'm going to take a drink.
That's no good. Well, you get your blood sugar up while I talk about something to excite the soul. All right, Tim, where are we off to next in the weird world of supernatural news as we wrap up 2018?
Well, the next one's an audio daily double, Dave, as experts are analyzing some new Bigfoot footage. A group of scientists is gathered in Dallas to reveal some new HD video footage. And let's go to that story now.
Bigfoot is real. Just ask the researchers who captured this video. These images have never been seen until now. The group behind it is known as the Sasquatch Genome Project. A genetic scientist, Dr. Melba Ketchum, led the effort.
We just want people to understand this is a serious study.
The 5-year study cost more than $500,000, all given by businessman Adrian Erickson.
Just people have chosen to they don't want to believe it. They can't find in their minds to believe these things exist.
So the group set out to track what they call the furry people. They say they followed a mother and daughter in Kentucky and captured various images and video. These are photos of massive prints. The video is compelling, but the strongest evidence the group has is DNA it says it's collected. The group says there are thousands of these creatures in the United States, including right here in North Texas. As for the DNA, they say it is like nothing that has been seen before.
This creature does not follow the general rule. What it does do is it's very different. We think it is a human hybrid. That is our theory.
Hybrid, they say, because some of the DNA samples sent to UT Southwestern, New York University, and the North Louisiana Crime Lab came back human, but others did not. They say the science is there, whether you want to accept it or not.
You're not dealing with an animal. You're dealing with something that walks on two legs, has children, and obviously through other types of research and audio, they have a language.
All signs, the group says, that Bigfoot is no longer a big myth. In Dallas, Shari Williams, CBS 11 News.
That's pretty interesting. Now, I know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Dr. Melba Ketchum, but that, you've got some real money behind it. What they say, he spent that guy had spent over $500,000 already to help back this project. David Weatherly looks like he's on that panel as well. I'm interested to see where this goes. That they claim they've got real DNA evidence. The video and photographic evidence is pretty interesting as well. We'll have to see how this story plays out. But, we might be getting closer. We might finally be getting closer to understanding more things. I am now of the mind disclosure is not far off. I really am starting to believe that, Tim. I think something big is coming within the next 5 to 10 years for disclosure regarding UFOs and aliens. And I think if that door turns, things like Bigfoot are going to come tumbling out of the dirty closet as well. We're going to start finding out more and more about this stuff.
Maybe.
All right, I'm sorry. You had a related story. Where are we going next?
A related story. We go to Kentucky, Dave, where a monstrous creature turned its head and looked straight at our car. That is the quote. A woman is reported to have seen a frightening creature on a road outside the eastern Kentucky town of Sandy Hook, prompting an investigation by the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or BFRO. The group released a follow-up report this month that concludes a woman saw something that wasn't human. Sandy Hook is about 100 miles east of Lexington, Kentucky. She described it as a walking tree, that according to investigator Jack Smarr, after interviewing the woman. His report stopped short of declaring it was Bigfoot, the legendary ape-like creature that remains more a popular myth than scientific fact, according to LiveScience.com. Claims of Bigfoot sightings have been reported across the nation for decades, including a 2017 nighttime encounter in the woods of McDowell County, North Carolina. Founded in 1995, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization says it is the oldest and largest scientific research organization exploring the Bigfoot-Sasquatch mystery. Smarr says he interviewed the Kentucky woman about her experience, calling it a Class B incident in which a possible Sasquatch was observed at a great distance or in poor lighting. The woman who he declined name is reported to have seen a creature while she was a passenger in her husband's vehicle at about 7:45 p.m. on October 18th. At some point, she said, I started screaming, "There is something in the road," the woman is quoted as saying. I'm looking at this thing, which is at least 7 feet tall. It was the color of a tree. It turned its head and looked straight at our car. The woman's husband saw only a strange shadow, but not the creature, says the Bigfoot Field Research report. Smarr says the entire episode lasted only 3 to 5 seconds, and the animal was nearly 100 feet away. Social media reaction to the sighting includes one man who says he too has seen a being the same color as a tree, but it was in western North Carolina. He wrote that he was relieved to learn someone else had seen the same thing. What I saw has a pattern and a color scheme to its fur that, in my opinion, closely resembles what looks to be tree bark, posted Charles Eric Presnell of Burnsville, North Carolina, on Facebook. So there you go.
That's crazy. So kind of a walking tree.
A little bit, according to the color and pattern of the fur, yeah.
That might explain how they vanish so easily.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Camouflage.
I wonder if they caught it kind of transitioning.
Maybe.
I know that sounds madcap, but I'm just wondering. Strange stuff. All right, where are we off to next?
Next, we move on to an alien contact cover-up with a question mark. Mysterious triangular aircraft is spotted hovering above the Pentagon. A bizarre pyramid-shaped object has been spotted and filmed by multiple witnesses as a UFO floated above the Pentagon this past week. Online viewers of the videos questioned whether the sighting over the infamous military installation was evidence of a government cover-up of contact with aliens. Others suggested that the triangular object was proof of a top-secret holographic U.S. military experiment. In the eerie videos, a giant black triangle can be seen looming above the U.S. Department of Defense. The shocking video footage was filmed by both Alex Dude, that's a real name, I guess, and David Wilson.
Alex Dude, check this out.
Sounds like a skater to me. And David Wilson on Wednesday. The two clips were later shared by YouTube conspirators Blake and Brett Cousins on their channel Third Phase of Moon. They argued that the videos were proof that an alien invasion could be imminent. The fact that there were more than one witness to the event was used as evidence by the Cousins that something is going on. Blake remarked, a pyramid, maybe the size of Giza itself, is just hovering there, lighter than air. The quote was, is this some kind of invasion? There is something going on. In one of the clips, the object suddenly disappears, leaving the cameraman to yell, where is it? It's gone. I can't see it. Several viewers were convinced that the mysterious triangle had alien origins. One person wrote, the darker face of the pyramid is darker than the background sky. You cannot project a shadow. This suggests it's a real object. Some conspiracy theorists claim the object could actually be a secretive military vessel developed by the United States Air Force. The Cousins refuted skeptic claims that the pyramid was simply a reflection from the car window or civilian aircraft.
Now, I've watched that footage, and at first I thought, you know what, he's seeing some kind of reflection off the windshield of the car, because originally they're filming it through the windshield.
Okay.
And it looks very suspect to me. It's this kind of light blue, and you know when you see like reflections in a glass pane at night, how it's got that kind of blue hue to it? Mm-hmm. It was that, but then he swerves it around into the back seat and starts looking at it again from the back seat, and you can still see it, and it begins to morph. So I don't know, is it some kind of reflection of the back of the phone that's filming it, that when he changes, it's going to change perspective and it's going to look different on the back, you know, or side window as it did from the front window, different light source? Very well could be. I'm not sure or 100% I believe what I'm seeing, but it definitely, left me questioning it. I'll say that. I wasn't quick to dismiss as I normally would. All right. And wow, is this our last story of 2018?
This is our last story, yeah.
It went so fast.
It did, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
A biohacker has injected himself with holy DNA. I know this may sound dirty to you, but I'm keeping it on the up and up. I'm keeping it on the level for the last of 2018. A French teenager with an interest in biohacking recently performed a rather strange experiment in which he injected himself with DNA derived from holy texts. I'm trying to keep it on the up and up.
All right, I have so many questions. Go ahead.
Okay. In a paper detailing his weird work, Adrian Locatelli explained that he used an online translating tool to take the letters originally found in the Book of Genesis and switch them to the nucleotides found in DNA. He also performed the same swap with the 13th chapter of the Quran. From there, Locatelli used the proverbial codes produced by the program to fabricate corresponding protein sequences and then actually inserted the substance into each of his thighs. By pulling off the daring experiment, the young man apparently made history by becoming the first person ever to be injected with DNA that contains a coded text. Fortunately for him, the procedure did not produce any dangerous side effects aside from some slight swelling in one of his legs, which only lasted a few days.
All right, so I guess you read it, I've read it, but how exactly... So this codex is kind of in this text. They manipulated the codex of DNA and then re-injected that DNA into his body to try to... that doesn't sound safe.
No.
I don't know why suddenly I sounded like Floyd the Barber from the Andy Griffith. Oh, Andy. Oh, that doesn't sound safe.
It doesn't sound safe at all.
No. But how do you get access to start manipulating DNA, and should you inject it into yourself? Did he think he was going to become like Bible Man or something? You inject holy text DNA into your body. Now you have the ability to quote the Bible.
This sounds like some Dan Brown shit right here. That's all I know.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Well, that's it this year. We've had a lot of weird stories through 2018. It's been a good year for weirdness, and we appreciate it. Remember, if you find strange stories from your area of paranormal or supernatural ilk, email me a link to dave@darknessradio.com. We may use one of those stories in the upcoming year. You never know. It's always possible. And we want to hear from you. We want you to be a part of the show. So you can give us a call to our Voices from Beyond voicemail at 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977. And this time I have a little bit of a challenge for you. I'm going to throw you a question, and I'd like to hear from you. You're welcome to call in and share your ghost stories, UFO stories, alien, any kind of supernatural tale. But I'm going to throw you a question. If you could have a conversation with an alien, and you could pass on one piece of wisdom to aliens regarding the human race, what would it be? Give us a call. Leave your voicemail. We'll talk about that on an upcoming episode. 651-300-4977. That's the Beyond the Darkness voicemail to leave those messages. Or you can leave up to a 3-minute paranormal experience, and we'll play it on an upcoming episode. Next, right here, Parashare on Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
We're back on this, our final episode of Parashare and Supernatural News for 2018. I don't know why it's bothering me. I mean, we've got a whole nother year ahead of us here, Tim.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Just, saying goodbye to the past year, hello to a new year, it's always kind of a break for me, kind of a little bit of a regret-filled moment, because I feel like there was more we could have or should have done, but I guess we'll pony it up in 2019, make things even more exciting. How about that?
Sure.
All right. Here's an email. It says, Dave and Tim, I have a supposed Bigfoot sighting. God, let me retry this. My mouth is not working. Dave and Tim, I have a supposed Bigfoot living in the Pine Barrens area of New Jersey. And I was with someone as a witness, so we saw the very same thing. It was very real. Although experiencing much paranormal activity in that area of New Jersey, as once was described one of the creepiest places on Earth, I'm still not sure whether it was a hoax or not. But one thing I do know for sure, the thing we saw was very real, giving not a total assurance, but a feeling almost certain to this day that I'm leaning towards the reality it was a Bigfoot, and 100% positive not the Jersey Devil. We were driving home through the Pine Barrens, thicket of pine trees, late one night on a solitary road going through these pine trees when we saw a very tall, hairy, huge as in build, not heavy as in weight, male-looking creature on the side of the road coming out of the heavily treed wooded area, which was on both sides of the road crossing to the other side. Now, Tim, I've got to stop the story there.
Okay.
I have not read the rest of this. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but how do you think she was able to determine that this huge beast was in fact a male? Do you think the old adage of the big feet, meaning, other things, might have actually lined up in this scenario?
She might have yelled hand check. And that
Oh.
might have been the way, yeah.
Because a lot of people see Bigfoot and it's huge and hairy, and very few actually define if it's male or woman. I know the Patterson-Gimlin film, they refer to her as Patty because she appears to have the boobages. Maybe this one did not have the boobages.
That may be.
I think that's a scientific explanation. Anyway, almost stopping, I thought we better keep going, but we did slow when I hollered, "Look at that thing!" While slowing, we looked as hard as we could to see the thing running into the woods after it crossed, but it was impossible. For the denseness of the trees and the very late night darkness, we couldn't see past a few feet as it ran. We were both startled. We could hardly speak for a short while after that. Now, why did that creature run out in front of us at that time? I feel it was done on purpose. But why us, I thought? Maybe I'll never know. But I keep on searching for the reasons. Hopefully, someday, we who have experienced such happenings of the paranormal will find out the reasons. Maybe Bigfoot's just kind of an exhibitionist, and on occasion he likes to run past, flogging his, big stick, if you know what I mean. Just let you know who's the real king of the forest. I thought at one time these Bigfoots were hybrid creatures from the wild, then thought that they were figments of imagination or spirits until I saw this one. Now, at this time, after reading, listening, and looking at pictures, perhaps Bigfoot just might be a shapeshifter, for they can disappear, reappear, and they can also see us, watch us steadily, react to us, and watch our reactions to them. I know alien shapeshifters can do all of this, but why are they here posing for us? I know they are doing so on purpose. Is it for a reason from out there, from their own kind, as they only know and are sent to do so? Are they soldiers from the higher, super powerful aliens in charge, taking orders, working as they are directed to do? Are they sent here to spy on other aliens, actions from other races that are out there, which are here too, whom they are at war with? Possibly. Is it a connection that they have to us, as it's been said and printed, that they had a hand in our creation? So are they here to make further studies on us and make some changes? Another thought, are the Bigfoots malevolent or benevolent? Are they from a realm or heavenly source, or could they be from a hellish source? Only if one believes in those realms, that is. Everyone has their belief systems and entitled to their own feelings concerning the out there. One of these days, soon, I really hope, as the world is so interested in these creatures, we will find out exactly what is going on with Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, as they are known around the globe. The supernatural and paranormal areas are still in their infancies. As we know, they need more time and exploration as we see and feel. But at least now, it is in here and not totally out there any longer. Maybe all this was in here right from the beginning, just not known about until as of late. All I know is Bigfoots are real. Whatever they are, and whatever their appearance, at different times, I just feel they're alien shapeshifters. Huh. Thank you, Dave and Tim. Respectfully, Wisteria. Some stuff to chew on there.
Yeah.
Some concepts.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave and Tim, love the show. I wanted to tell you about the only time I saw a ghost shadow person. This was around 2010. I was visiting my father while he was working in Fresno, California. And I would stay on an air mattress in the living room while I was there. One night I wake up and have an overwhelming feeling that I was not alone and I needed to look behind me. So I looked behind me, and up against the wall was a computer desk, and sitting in the chair of the computer desk was a black mass in the shape of a person. There was a light on the backside of the computer tower, so I was able to see its shape very clearly. The weird thing is, it looked like it was just sitting there eating. I could see a square object in its hand, and every so often it would bring it up to its head, then back down to its lap, as if it were eating a sandwich. Now, I've always heard that when you look away or blink, they disappear, so I forced myself not to blink. I just stared at it until the black mass slowly got more transparent. I started to be able to see through the head of this thing and could see the wall behind it that was dimly lit by the computer light. It was very odd, but the only paranormal thing that's ever happened. Thank you for taking time to read this. I love your show. That comes from Chris Petty. Well, Chris, I have to ask this. Do you sit in that chair and eat sandwiches? Maybe you were just getting a view of yourself. It was a time slip. Or does anybody in your house sit there and eat sandwiches? Maybe that's the sandwich chair and you don't know about it. Do you have a sandwich chair, Tim?
Every chair is a sandwich chair, Dave.
Every chair. I have one chair in my living room where I like to sit and eat. The rest of the couch makes me uncomfortable. The love seat, hell no. But my little Captain Kirk plush chair. Mm-hmm. It's not like it has a Star Trek logo on it, but it just gives me that command console feeling. I love that chair to eat in.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if you would see a residual haunting of me sitting there enjoying SpaghettiOs with sliced franks at some point, Tim.
Wow.
How you would know there were sliced franks in there because it's just a shadowy figure, I'm not sure, but you could pretty much guess that it is. Hi, Dave and Tim.
Hi.
I've enjoyed listening to your show for a number of years. Anyway, I've noticed that you have made fun of Canadians, but all will be forgiven if you wear a toque, drink some maple syrup, and build an igloo. However, failing that, please share my weird story. Over 25 years ago, I was married, and my first daughter was 16 months old at the time. My husband and I and my 16-month-old daughter were sharing a very tiny bedroom at my sister's cottage, I woke up around 2 o'clock in the morning to a bright light. The light was the shape of the Virgin Mary and was lighting up the entire room, But instead of being comforted, I was petrified, I know that this was malevolent, not benevolent. My first thought was that I had to get my daughter, but in order for me to do that, I would have had to go through this entity. as it was now, or that's how small the room was. I tried to wake up my husband, but that didn't work. I wanted to scream, but seemed to be frozen. I hid under the covers and peeked back out, and it was still there. Finally, I fell asleep and woke up in the morning, checking to see if my daughter was still okay. Thankfully, she was. Has anyone else had an encounter like that? I've yet to come across. If someone has, would love to know what that was. Thanks. From Rosalia. R-O-S-A-L-I-A? Is that Rosalia?
R-O-A...
R-O-S-A-L-I-A. Rosalia.
Yeah. Rosalia, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. You thought it was the Virgin Mary, but you felt it was malevolent. I don't know. I've never heard that story before. I don't know.
I believe I once fought a woman known as the malevolent Virgin Mary. I think she was a wrestler, yeah.
Maybe it was more of an angel, because people do sense that bright light and fear and tremble in their presence. That could be it. Otherwise, I don't know. Hi, Darkness Dave and Tenubrious Tim. This is Ashton from Maryland. I wanted to relate to you both an experience I had 3 or 4 years ago, as I've only had it to my friends and haven't yet had an opportunity to share it with someone who has any actual familiarity with this sort of thing. I had been to a local carnival with my grandparents late one night. As we were riding home, I saw what I can only describe as an UFO, Tim.
An UFO, you say?
Yes. Yeah. I live on the Delmarva Peninsula of Maryland, which is a very rural area, and we were driving down a desolate road with cornfields on either side. My grandfather was driving, and while my grandmother was in the passenger seat and I on the back seat, I was staring out the window, as I like to do on long drives, when I suddenly saw a large spherical blue flash of light, Tim. A spherical blue flash of light in the sky to the left of the vehicle. How far away from us and how high off the ground this object was, I cannot say for certain, as it was dark out, and I'm not the best at judging distance, let alone at night. My best estimate is that this light was about 2 to 3 miles away and about the height of a radio tower from the ground. Indeed, at first I thought this was a radio tower, as the way in which the light blinked and then quickly faded out made me think it was simply one of those aircraft warning lights you see on the top of radio towers. However, I quickly realized this wasn't a radio tower when I saw the light reappear a considerable distance to the left of the point I'd previously been. Whether it was a few football field lengths away or a couple of miles, again, I cannot be certain, but it was a considerable distance. Once more, the light faded out and quickly reappeared in the same distance to the left of the point it had been previously. And again, just as one light faded out, another one would reappear a set distance away from it, sort of like a string of Christmas lights that would light up consecutively, one at a time. Each reappearance of the light was in a straight line from its last spot, the same set distance away, and it continued to travel in a linear pattern that was roughly parallel to the road we were traveling on. Though a few miles away to the left of our vehicles, the light continued teleporting, as I call it, in the pattern until it disappeared out of view over the horizon behind us. I should note that this light wasn't just some tiny blip in the sky. It was pretty large. Perhaps if you had a dime out at an arm's length towards the sky, it might give you a better idea of the rough size of this blue light. I'm doing my best to articulate this event in detail, but in reality, it couldn't have been more than 15 seconds from the time I first spotted the light to the time it teleported to the spot past the horizon in which it was no longer in my view. It was so fast. How fast was it? It was so fast, and I was fixated on it and deliberating on a mundane explanation for it that wasn't the object was for it. Good God. And deliberating on a mundane explanation for it that wasn't until the object was out of sight that I realized I couldn't think of an explanation for it. I asked my grandparents if they had seen the object, but unfortunately they did not, as they were looking forward at the road while the object was about a mile off the port side of the car. Since this experience, I've scoured the internet for an explanation to what that light could have possibly been, from ball lightning to the International Space Station, but none of these videos I've watched on YouTube have been even close to what I saw. I've heard plenty of stories of UFOs, but all the ones I've heard describe lights moving in a constant motion, not in the teleporting or consecutive blinking that I described. However, I'm recently started listening to both your show and Coast to Coast AM, and to my surprise, one night I heard the host of Coast to Coast describe a personal UFO sighting of his own that was shockingly similar to mine. The only difference being that in his experience, there were 3 lights stacked on top of each other that were engaged in this consecutive blinking that I described. However, hearing his account reassured me that I'm not crazy, and that there are people who have had the same sort of light I experienced. Anyway, I just wanted to know if you've heard of any UFO sightings that are similar to the one I described, as seeing this light made me extremely curious to what could be causing it. For some reason, I didn't get the impression that it was an alien craft, but rather that it was some sort of signal being transported along the surface of the Earth, or possibly related to ley lines in some way. I can't really describe why I feel this way, just sort of a gut feeling I got while watching this thing. And the way it's blinking reminded me of a radio tower. I could very well have been an alien craft for all I know, and I'm not familiar enough with the subject of ley lines to say one way or another. Thanks for reading my story, and keep on being the best in paranormal talk radio. And that comes from Mitch. Looks like Mitch. Well, thank you, Mitch, or Ashton, whatever. Sign Mitch, but it's Ashton as the name, so I'm not sure which one I'm going with here. But either one, Mitch and Ashton, thank you for that. I've heard many different varieties of stories regarding lights and blinking out, and they're there one instant and gone the next, so I can't tell you. And not knowing the terrain or the area, could it have been something that was not really vanishing, but going behind something, where there's spaced out buildings or trees, where there are things that would have given you the illusion that there was something else going on. I can't answer. Tim, do you want to weigh in? Any thoughts?
How's that?
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Here's something easier to discuss. Whether you love the action in sports, from college football, bowl games to NBA and NFL or more, or you love movies and TV with the Oscars and Golden Globes, betonline.ag has something for all types of interests. Sign up today for a free account on betonline.ag. Use the promo code PODCAST1, PODCASTONE, all one word, to receive a 50% sign-up bonus. Yeah, a 50% sign-up bonus. And take advantage of their Refer a Friend program, where you can give a 200% bonus to your friend, up to $200. Go online or use your mobile phone to sign up today and try in-game live betting, where you can participate with all the action with every play. Use the promo code PODCAST1 for a 50% sign-up bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Tim, our final 2 stories. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Are you ready for this? Doom, 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 doom. Can't remember how that music goes, but that was all I had.
That's pretty good.
Hi, Dave and Tim. Love your show. Can't thank you guys enough for what you do. I've included a bunch of stories that I've had happen to myself and my wife over the years. Look at this, Tim. Not one of those, I'll tell you the next story next time. We're getting all the stories in one email. Are you ready?
About time.
The OSR Library. My wife and I were part of a paranormal group that visited OSR, the Ohio State Reformatory, a few years ago in the early part of the summer. After going through the wonderfully guided historic tour of the place, we helped the crew set up everything and then headed off in our own directions. There were only about a dozen of us in the whole building, which was great. There wasn't a lot of outside interference that way. My wife and I hit all of the so-called hotspots, and we had very little luck overall. We didn't find solitary to be creepy or anything, although my wife was not a fan of the bats that were stuck inside and would occasionally go flying by. We eventually made it up to the library. I believe it was originally the hospital area. My wife and I walked into the middle of the room, and at first there was nothing really out of the ordinary. As I'm looking around, I begin to feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Then, in the best way I can describe it, it felt like something had crawled across the floor and was using me to pull itself upright, slowly grasping at my back higher and higher until it eventually was towering over me. I asked my wife if she noticed anything different, to which she simply looked at me funny. As I continued walking around the room, trying not to glance over my shoulder, it felt like whatever was there was only a few steps behind me, waiting for me to turn around. I began hurrying my wife towards the door. As we walked across the gangway to the cell block, my wife said, "There's something behind you, isn't there?" I simply said, "Yup." And we hurried her down the side of the cell block. About halfway down the walkway, I felt it drop back, and the hair on the back of my neck relaxed. I still hesitated to look over my shoulder because I knew something was there, and it really didn't like me. After a bit of walking around and trying to calm my nerves, my wife and I went downstairs to the base of the level of cell blocks and sat down against the outer wall. I've forgotten now which end it was, but as we sat there, we started hearing a slight noise. There would be a long pause and then another sound. We started looking around for the source of the sound, and as we turned our heads, we located it. Something was hitting the large glass windows overhead and dropping down just a few yards to the right of us. We watched for the bats to see if they were grazing the windows, but the light of the bats didn't coincide with the timing of the noise. As we trained our eyes on the cell blocks in front of us, we started looking for someone who might be throwing something, trying to mess with us. We couldn't see anyone up there, and we called up and asked if there was anyone there. We didn't hear a walkie-key or anything walk up in that area. As we sat there staring, we saw another pebble fly across the open area, hit the glass window, and fall to the floor, now only a foot or so from my wife. After talking to the guide caretaker, he mentioned that inmates used to throw stones and batteries at the windows in the summer in order to get a breeze going through the building because of the heat. And here's the house on the hill story. Where I grew up in southern Ohio, some family friends lived in a spooky house on top of a hill overlooking some of the nearby rivers. This house gave everyone that visited it the willies. To begin with, the land was originally Native American campground. Over the course of 20 years, they have found an entire dresser full of arrowheads, tomahawks, flint knives, beads, etc. When the house was originally built, it was before Ohio was even a state and slaves were used in construction. The stone basement was a room in the basement big enough for a person to stand in, but not sit comfortably. There was a small window with wrought iron bars across it embedded in the original stonework. Just outside of the door, the tiny room are what's left of shackles mounted to the wall. As you walk out the point towards the river, there's a very old cemetery with the headstones ranging from 1793 to 1869. This is a small plot off the side with just children in it and what's left of a small fence surrounding it. At the end of the point before the hill drops off, what's left at the foundation of a small church. My wife, then girlfriend, and I went up there when we first got together as we were both into ghost hunting. We walked in the cemetery after dark, and it seemed spooky enough. As we were walking around taking photographs of the headstones, I again felt something behind me. I asked my wife to snap a photo of me and see if she could see anything. I didn't feel threatened at all, but I could hear something there. My wife took a picture and then told me to hang on a second. She took another photo and another. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me to take a look at the photos. There was a white ball floating behind me. It was about half the size of my head, and it was the only thing there. We shook it off and continued checking the graveyard. I was walking out just ahead of my wife when she grabbed me and told me in no uncertain terms we had to go. I asked why, and when she said, "I don't know, I just have a really bad feeling," she snapped another photo towards the church foundation and turned around. We hurried towards the edge of the clearing, and as we were walking, we looked at each other and said, something is stomping behind us. Myself being an avid hunter all my life, I knew it wasn't a deer or anything else with four legs. I told my wife to pick it up and get the heck out of there. Strangely, once we hit the edge of the cemetery, everything just vanished. The footsteps, the wife to pick it up and get the hell out of here. Strangely, once we hit the edge of that cemetery, everything, just vanished. The footsteps, the feeling on the back of my neck, even the panic and fear we felt. I still hate that house. I'm pretty sure the house is still standing, but I think only the father still lives there. He only uses 3 rooms out of the 10 and refuses to go in the others. I don't know what all he's seen there, but he refuses to talk about it. Thank you and Tim for all you do. When I get some more time, I'll try to find photos and send them along in some of my stories. And that comes from Ed. Thank you, Ed. Have a happy new year. Hello, Dave. Hello, Tim. That was directed to both of us, so I thought I'd throw you in there. I found your show recently more or less on accident while looking for an old-time radio app. Nevertheless, I'm hooked now. Your personalities click so well that I found you both intriguing and amusing at the same time. A refreshing rarity. I like when they start off with a little ass kiss, and Tim makes me feel better about myself.
Oh, yeah.
Due to the fact that I have yet to hear you denounce anyone's experience, I feel safe sharing my own. There are many, but I'll start at the beginning, as the first is the one that confuses me to this day. I was just about 5 years old, playing outside in our suburban backyard, just happily swinging away. Mom was in the kitchen doing mom things. She kept looking out the sliding glass door to check on me, and I kept making funny faces at her. I was kind of our usual thing. Then suddenly I felt afraid. I mean, truly afraid. Now, there are two things here that strike me as odd. First off, I was afraid, and I seriously had no fear back then. And secondly, I remember it as if it happened yesterday. It felt like something bad was sneaking up on me, something I couldn't just kick in the shin and run from. Yes, I was a mean little girl sometimes. I turned to look behind me. About 30 feet away was a bare-chested man in black pants. He was bald, had very yellow cat-like eyes, a creepy half-smile, and he was red as fresh blood. Worse, he was staring at me. So like any good 5-year-old, I jumped off the swing and made a mad dash to the door. I was so terrified I couldn't remember how to open the door and too terrified to scream. But Mom was there quick. She heard my little body slam into the door and my little hands smacking desperately to be let in. Once she had let me in, I knew I was safe. I told her what I saw, and she went out to get rid of that sucker while I was waited at the breakfast table. I later learned that Mom was no stranger to the paranormal. As a matter of fact, I suspect she would have had no problems getting rid of any entity she didn't want around just by sheer strength of her will. When she came back in, she told me that she didn't see him, but she had felt him. And even though he tried to hide from her, she found him and sent him back where he came from. She said that since I saw him, I now know I would never have to see him again. I wasn't too clear on what she was getting at, but I trusted her with all my heart and figured that it was like being born. You only have to do that once, too. Then she walked outside with me right where the red man had been and asked me if I was okay. And I said I was. It was my domain again, and that scary dude was no longer invading it. So I went back to playing until lunch. That was 40 years ago. And no, while I remember it so clearly, I've never seen him again. I have, however, dealt with a few things similar to him, and a few simply odd things as well. But he was the only one to truly scare me. Thank God my mom was a serious badass when it came to doing things like that. She taught me that staying at peace was the best, but being furious worked well too, and she was indeed furious that day. Oh, so long ago. She later told me that when she saw me, I was sheet white and smacking at the door like crazy. So she went out the door to face that thing. She was pissed. Gotta love Mom. Anyway, I heard you make mention of others who have encountered a red man as well, but I can't help wonder if it's the same creature that I saw that day. Any thoughts? Keep up the good work, guys. Yours, Marie. Well, the Bloody Bones man isn't just kind of a red man. He certainly seems to be a guy stripped of his top layer of skin. So that sounds different to me than what you're experiencing, unless that's what you were saying and just didn't get as graphic. But I don't know. That would be my guess, is that it could have been the Bloody Bones man, or maybe a different iteration of that. Or perhaps you were seeing a Native American man there at some point. I'm just not sure. Any thoughts on that, Tim?
Red man in yellow eyes.
Yeah, that does sound like the Bloody Bones man. Huh.
That's the first thing that came to mind when you described it as a Bloody Bones man, although maybe it was an iteration of a devil you saw too.
Very well could be.
Could be.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks a lot for being a part of it with us. And if we don't end up talking to you until next year, have a very, very happy new year from Dave and Tim and your favorite paranormal talk radio show. This is Beyond the Darkness.